My name is Rory Houlihan. I ran for U.S. Senate last spring, 2016, to stop the ticking time bombs so I could put our economy track for a bright new day instead of all things ending. Well, I lost the election and am not running for now, but the ticking time bombs are still here, if not more so. Let me educate you on the ticking time bombs and give you the rest of the story. Part 1N/B, continuation of Lucius Quintus Cincinnatus Lamar, a most unlikely liberal. In those early years, when Lamar was a congressman, Lamar stood for Southern honor above all, and that meant slavery above all. Lamar never entertained the idea that the Southern system was flawed until the Civil War showed him, without a doubt, that slavery could not survive the war. Understand, the South had turned itself into a police state long ago. How else are you going to force folks into slavery? The first step is to enslaving folks is always a police state. What has been going on in recent history? Well, we have Nixon's war on drugs, which concentrated drugs to hide, but also made them death do us part drugs, and made the bad guys rich. I guess that solved everything. Huh? No. Then Ronald Reagan had the war on crime because we had made the bad guys rich and the hardworking folks poor during our first recession, like in 50 years. Same results. Now add in a dash of shall not be infringe absolute gun rights so that the bad guys have guns too. Conservatives and their conservative values and policies making you safer and safer. No. Instead, massacre after massacre? Wonder why. Remember, you are the safest when the bad guys don't have guns and you do. And that only occurs when we put the first part of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated first, and the second part of the Second Amendment shall not be infringed second, as the Second Amendment is actually written, and not the other way around. Conservatives, liberals believe in all of the Second Amendment, not just some of the Second Amendment, as conservatives seem to just be fixed on shall not be infringed. I wonder why. You need to start asking yourself if these conservative policies are a highway to hell. Then George Bush's Patriot Act. Do we have a police state today? Then we have conservatives pushing privatization of jails. Again, my dad served in the U.S. Army over in Germany and could speak German. None of the German death camps were in Germany. They were all operated outside the normal government by private concerns, the SS. Set them up that way. The first step to concentration camps is privatization, folks. Some would say, yes, we ain't that far from a dictatorship. Wonder why people are freaking out. Understand this, folks. Fear is the drug that tyrants use to get you good folks to hand them your liberties. That is why the Bible says 354 times, that's time after time, to fear not. But the Bible also says at the same time, 354 times, to have faith in our institutions like our Christian faith. I just heard a couple weeks ago an alt-right ad demonizing Pope Francis because the Pope didn't fall in line, I guess. Good folk are under attack, both directly and indirectly, from the Alps, the Alcons, and the Russian Ayn Rand conservatives. They don't value our country and our country's reputation. They want civil unrest that is disruptive to our country and our local businesses community. They want to use force and fear to intimidate. They use and hide behind good folk, the small c conservatives' reputation of being the salt of the world folks, and they are, which forces me to call conservatives out, the big C conservatives, because things have gone on too long and too far. I have been in retail and understand marketing and branding, and the big C conservatives use good folks' reputation to do our country evil, which ruins good folks' reputation. One, so you have these three groups join forces against our Christian and democratic institution. We progressive liberals reject their values and their anti-democratic overreaching policies, which are creating a highway to hell. That is a ticking time bomb. Now back to a two-front defense meant that the South had to maintain two forces. One to maintain the police state and one to fight the war with the North. Soon after the war started, there was a bill that was passed that gave big plantation owners a way out of the army. Who do you think was running the states then? The sectionalists, every state for itself? The yellow bellies, every man for himself first? Weren't they the ones running the South? Kentucky is full example of sectionalism losing the battle for the South, despite the heroic efforts of the Southern fighters. Perryville and Richmond come to mind. I keep on talking about killers and murderers. Killers care and murderers don't. Understand this. Folks back then supported each side, the South and the North, with the doors. The doors were open for the North and the Northern Army, and the doors were closed, locked tight, for a matter of fact, for the South. Why would that be? Well, when the Northern Army came into town, the men were paid and had money, which they spent. The soldiers were clean and well-mannered. The Northern military paid the local folks for supplies and rooms. When the Northern Army came into town, it was a boom time for the locals. Now, let's take a look at the Southern Army. The men were ragamuffins because they or their families had to provide their clothes. They had no money or were paid in worthless scrip. With no money, the Southern Army had to scavenge for food, clothing, and other military supplies for themselves. This meant that they had to rob and raid local folks. I think there is a song about this. The night they took old Dixie Town. Ah, would you today open your doors to an army of tramps? Understand this. Murderers only use, abuse, and betray those that support them. Isn't that what happened in Richmond, Kentucky? The North's army weathered the ice storm inside warm homes. The South's army sat out in the ice storm for like 3 days. Fighting that day half froze against well-warmed, huh? The Tennessee had never lost a battle, ever, since General Jackson led them to defeat the experienced British Army, who had a force 4 times the Tennessee's outside of New Orleans. The Tennessee was the best fighting men the U.S. had. They caved in Richmond, defeated more by the ice than by the Northern Army. The result of killers care and murderers don't is 20,000 or more dead or severely wounded, lying in an ice-covered field, a real hellhole. Friend, based on the results of the Civil War, real world, I see sectionalism and sessionism as a highway to hell. The Alps and the Alcon all rights haven't changed. If you support today's conservatives, big C conservatives, you will have the same fate. Take my word for it. Take my advice. I'd stop going down the conservative rabbit hole if I were you. I wouldn't have any faith in those conservatives and their conservative values. They are great liars and deceivers, and their road is a road to hell. If you like what you hear, would you do me a favor and subscribe to my Rory for Us YouTube channel? Thank you very much. End of part 1 and B. Continuation of Lucius Quintus Cincinnatus Lamar, the most unlikely liberal. You have a good and blessed day. Bye.